I have a lot of people who still go, "Oh, you're the guy that did No Holds Barred." It was a very popular movie, and a lot of people I run into now still bring it up when they find out who I am, and "Oh, you're the guy." You're the guy. Oh yeah.
We were doing Allentown TV, and I was in the dressing room when I got a note handed to me by Arnold Scotland, who was a backstage road agent for the company. The note said to call Sylvester Stallone. And so, in Terry Bollea's own words, began Hulkamania. In 1982, Hulk Hogan appeared as Thunderlips in Rocky III. From there, Hogan got on Johnny Carson.
All right, do you know anything about Hulkamania?
Hulkamania?
Hulkamania.
If you want me to. What is Hulkamania?
Well, Hulkamania is the newest thing, Johnny. It's the thing that is sweeping the country. I'm sure some of these guys over here might know about it. I hope.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, thank you. Okay, it's like a new cult, and it's like follow the leader. Everybody does what the Hulkster does. It's like truth, justice, and the Hulk Hogan way.
Right.
And I hope today that we may be able to demonstrate or do a few things with you. So.
Absolutely.
And his legend began to grow. Vince McMahon snapped him up for WrestleMania, and at WrestleMania 3, Hogan slammed Andre the Giant. And the rest is history.
We're seeing what this guy is really made of. What he is. The greatest professional athlete in the world today. Look at this. He's slammed it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Oh, dropping a big leg. Over for the cover. It's over. Unbelievable. I never thought it could be done, Gorilla.
In the midst of the Hulkamania craze, Vince McMahon tried to make a splash in Hollywood in 1989. He self-financed a $20 million vehicle for Hulk Hogan, called No Holds Barred. Justification was, according to Hogan, nobody in Hungary knew who 80s superstars like Michael J. Fox and Rob Lowe were. But even people in the tiniest square watching the only TV in town knew who Hulk Hogan was. So I became the most visible media star of the 80s. It was documented in polls that my face, bald head and bandana and blonde mustache was better known than anyone else's. The time seemed right to try a new medium. That's how Vince McMahon and I got involved in producing a movie called No Holds Barred.
Bereits, ich stehe hier mit dem WWF-Weltmeister, mit einem der größten und stärksten Catcher der Welt, Hulk Hogan. Hulk, you've made a film. What motivated a man who gets in the ring day after day, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, the WWF World Champion, to make a movie?
Well, you know something, big dude? Just like you, brother, you're the biggest Hulkamaniac all over Germany. And just like you train, say your prayers, and eat your vitamins, the WWF champion Hulk Hogan is known all over the world, brother. And I figured since I use TV, since I use video, and since I used radio, it was time to use the big screen to pass this message along to all those little Hulksters, brother, that you gotta train, you gotta say your prayers, you gotta eat your vitamins, and you gotta never give up, man. No matter how tough the fight gets in life, just like you and me, big dude, you never give up. That's what Hulkamania is all about.
The thing about Vince is he could match me toe-to-toe in the obsession department. If I was in 150%, so was he. We could put blinders on and just block out the whole world, the naysayers, the old-time wrestlers who thought the business should stay just the way it was. We'd power our way through any obstacle that hit us, and we pushed each other. I used to call him the Terminator. One example. A few years into the Hulkamania madness, Linda and I relocated to Florida, to an old townhouse down Reddington Beach. One time Vince came down and we locked ourselves in a hotel room nearby. For 48 straight hours we sat at a table with a pencil and paper and wrote the movie No Holds Barred from beginning to end. It was a ridiculous movie, but we wrote it from beginning to end without stopping, without sleeping for 48 hours. It was like 300 pages before we handed it to a writer to polish it up. I'd never met anyone who could hang with me like that.
Hey,
Are you looking for a little escape?
Want to see something
This is sick!
you don't see every day? Are you ready for a whole new Hulk Hogan? Hulk Hogan is ripped. To the world, he's a hero. But to this man, he's history. Zeus. Stand back. Way back. Get ready for the battle no ropes can hold. No ring. No referee. No rules.
Gentlemen, it's time.
No holds barred.
Writer Dennis Hacken, who had written Bronco Billy for Clint Eastwood, got the job because he told Hogan and Vince he had wrestled in high school and was willing to wrestle the two other writers they were considering for the job. It didn't come down to that, and Hacken was awarded the writing gig. However, as far as the 300-page manifesto, Hacken remembers, that's malarkey. Vince and I had story sessions and discussed with Hulk. My script was the original, but Vince and Hulk treated me right, and it was a cool trip. Enter director Tom Wright.
I had a few things I would like to have changed, which we did, to a degree. Then they had things they liked. Vince, of course, had things he liked for the script, so we worked it out. But yeah, there was the first script I read was not. It just needed to be changed, and sort of the thrust of it. It was more like a crazy comic book, really, even crazier than it ended up. I mean, really pretty wild. Vaguely remember stuff like I think happened in submarines and things like that. I mean, it was pretty much all over the place. There wasn't really, at least in my estimation, a really good train of thought or the character. Of course, the character still was a comic book character, but he had a little more grit and reality to him by the time we finally, I thought, got to him in the script. And then we kept, it kept being worked as we went and hit the road. Well, I got into really directing around 75. They actually started paying me to direct. And by the time No Holds Barred came along, I was directing a lot of television. So, in fact, I think I was doing a series called Beauty and the Beast. Yeah. And I think I was doing that when I got the job for No Holds because I was really busy with that. And then every weekend I would go back to New York and meet with Vince and until we started production. So, well, it went very well. I would go back to see him and we would talk, discuss things and kind of, the outlook, what we were looking for, what he was looking for, what was expected, what any ideas I might have. So it sort of started that way. And that went on for, I'm not sure when we actually started pre-production on No Holds Barred, but it went on for quite a while. And then we started putting crews together, pre-crews, like business managers, production managers, producers, so forth, and more discussion. And then we finally got a start date, and which I don't even remember when that was, but we did it in Atlanta, as you know, of course. And I think we left once to go shoot a sequence in Kansas or somewhere, and but mainly done in Atlanta. And I had my crew with me, which was a great crew, and it went well, really, considering went very well. I was pretty much, we were left alone to make the movie, really. So Vince said, here it is, basically goodbye. I mean, I would see him once in a while. They would come around to see us, but was pretty much left alone to make the movie. But I mean, we had talked through a lot of the stuff pretty well. I think he really has a lot of confidence in me, and really liked a lot of my ideas and my background, I guess. And basically, when we started the movie, I was directing it, and that was it, you know. Oh, well, they'd never done, you know, they weren't movie people. So they really hadn't done much of this at all. This was kind of their first so-called big project in the movies, you know. I used a lot of the wrestlers in the scene for other guys, you know. They would bring them in because they'd say, well, can they be in the show? And I go, yeah, I'll bring them. What can they do? And they would do, like at the train place. And these were all real wrestlers. And like the guy that the one kept hitting his head on the metal column, that was real. I was stunned. I go, okay, now here's the idea. And I figured he'd take, you know, a movie hit, right? Well, no, action, bong. Right forehead, right into this metal pole, and it was like, holy shit! He'd go, you want another one, you know? So I think I did 3 or 4, and he had every time I said, you don't have to do that. No, got to do it. But stuff like that. I mean, it was, and he would really slam his forehead right into this. It was a metal pole. I think it was in. I don't remember what the set was, whether it was a train station or whether it was. And it was the first time I thought, oh my God, he's going to die. Nope, he did it about 3 or 4 times. And so I didn't worry about those guys anymore.
Vince McMahon is so notorious for his control over every aspect of the projects that he works on that he reportedly hates when people sneeze because it's involuntary and he can't control it. But Tom Wright recalls that Vince was incredibly hands-off during the production, perhaps when compared to other studio heads and producers that Wright had worked with in the past, because Jim Johnston, the legendary WWE composer, saw it differently.
I didn't have direction about what the film was, really. Normally in a film, there is a director, and he's really God for that film. You know, it's a director's vision, and they have in their head and eyes and heart what they want that film to look, sound, and feel like. And they dictate that downstream to all the different players, to the cinematographer, to the costumes and everything else, and certainly to the composer. But I was sort of in a unusual position, not particularly a good one, and really it was the same position I was in later on with all that series of films that I scored later, with Legendary and Inside Out, where we had a director, but Vince was the boss. Vince was the director, even though he was not directing the film. And I worked for Vince. So I'm sure that made it incredibly frustrating for the directors, to which I apologize to all of them, if any of them ever read this interview. but you know, that's just the way it rolls. You know, if your boss is your boss, and in this case, Vince was the boss, and it was true on a really nice guy. Named Tom Wright, whom I liked a lot more than I'm sure he thought I liked him, only because I'm sure he kind of saw me as the enemy in a way. I think he wanted to make a very different film than Vince wanted to make. I think Vince wanted to keep it very much in a kind of WWE world place, and I think Tom really wanted to stretch Hulk outside that world into a different place. So I don't know. I think that's always a problem in projects when there's not a clear focus, a clear vision, or a clear boss. Then you get a kind of a skewed message and vibe. It's, I think, what you hear a lot when artists will complain, well, We had all these company suits throwing in their creative 2 cents, and they're really not very creative people, and it just brings the whole process down. It's a common problem, and so that was kind of my take on my opinion about what was happening there. Well, it wasn't like Vince was saying, hey, write a piece that's rock with 2 guitars in the key of G here. It wasn't that kind of specificity, but you feel the temperature in the air about what the boss is looking for, and you go that direction. Because, Jake, it's real simple. Vince is not a man of mild opinions. Tom Wright could have jumped up and down for 18 hours saying, I love this. This is the perfect piece of music for this scene. If Vince doesn't think so, the piece of music's out, period. We're done. Discussion over.
Hulkster, you've been in the ring with some of the meanest men in the world, some of the biggest, some of the baddest, some of the strongest, some of the brawniest, and that takes a lot of toughness. But man, you just made a movie, you played a role, and that takes a lot of sensitivity, Hulk. How did you get that? How did you do that, Hulk?
Well, big brother, I'm not worried about all those mean, tough guys out there in the WWF. The thing is, I've got the most powerful force in the universe on my side. I got all those little teeny Hulkamaniacs cheering me on. And when everybody sees me in Madison Square Garden, in Tokyo, the Budokan, wrestling over in Africa, Asia, the North Pole, the South Pole, or any points in between, they see how tough Hulk Hogan is. But once I leave the ring, Hulk Hogan cools out, brother. Hulk Hogan is sensitive. Hulk Hogan is caring. And sometimes, romantically, I get backed into a corner, and I have to fight my way out of that corner. But Rip, man, is a lot like Hulk Hogan, because when it's time to get down, when it's time to be intense, when it's time to win the fight, you gotta Hulk up and be a maniac. But when it's time to make good grades, kids, when it's time to do your chores at school, you better cool out and get the job done the Hulk Hogan way, brother. That's what it's all about.
Hulk Hogan joins us this morning. I told you he had a romantic scene here. You don't like that we played that, do you?
Well, that's a whole other side of Hulk Hogan that the kids are going to see. And that is a romantic side of Hulk Hogan, but that's as far as it goes. Just a little bit of nibbling there with Joan Severance. She's my girlfriend in the movie No Holds Barred, and she comes on pretty strong when she finds out what a nice guy the Hulkster really is. I have to make a pretty strong stand to keep her away,
Are you worried about that, though, being perceived as too nice?
Well, no, because for the last 5.5 years, I've been yelling and screaming at the kids to train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and if you don't eat your vegetables, I'll body slam you. And now, with this movie, it gives me the artistic liberty to show the kids that after you're wired like a maniac and you're trying to get good grades and trying to make the football team or slam dunk a basketball, the other 23 hours of the day, it's okay to be a real person, to be cool. And what's so funny is everything in this world goes around and it comes back around. So if you're real positive, good things come back to you. And in this movie, you'll see a whole new Hulk Hogan that's vulnerable, sensitive, sometimes in trouble, and almost romantically caught in a pretty rough situation. But
the real Hulk Hogan.
This is the real Hulk Hogan. And, I've had these kids listening for so long, when I've yelled and screamed at them. And sometimes they won't listen to the parents or the teachers, but they listen to the Hulkster when I yell at them. My mom, and Dad, and my wife, and all my friends that know me, they say, if everybody just knew you how you really were, they'd like you even more.
Yeah, no, it was a stretch for a few of them, believe me, from the acting standpoint. And as you can see, but yeah, you have to pick your moments, and there were moments where, like, when, the kid was hurt and he was done, they were in the hospital and all that stuff. I guess that's in the movie. But, I like to mix it up. You got to mix it up. Of course, you don't have to mix it up. But it needed more levels to it, I thought, instead of just being straight out stupid stuff, over the top, running into walls, all that kind of stuff.
Sam, are you okay?
I'm
Sam.
so ashamed. Brow's an evil man, but I'm worse because I know better, and I let him use me.
Did Brell do this?
Just let it go. Just let it go, please. I just want you to forgive me.
forgive you, Sam.
It wasn't that bad. Of course, you know, again, you work with them, until you kind of get there. But he came in pretty well emotionally set for it. I think he knew what was coming, and he knew what he was going to have to do. But it would take a while. There were scenes with Hulk and with Joan and you know, some of the more, let's say, serious scenes or compassionate scenes. It would take a bit, you know, so because wasn't his thing really, or at least not the subtle levels, right? You know, and everything was very large and big, and so it would take a while, but we would kind of get there. Sometimes we'd make it. And then, you know, Joan was good, so she was a big help, and I really liked working with her a lot. She was terrific. And like I say, I really had a good cast on that movie, and we had a good time doing it. And some of the other actors that were in it were much better versed, you know, experience-wise. We worked pretty well, really, all together. I mean, he listened. He, like I say, it was kind of his first big deal, and he was the big star, you know. He was the lead, and it was his movie, kind of, and for sure. But, I mean, he was aware that he needed to pay attention, and which he did. And we tried stuff once in a while. It would get a little crazy, but it does everywhere. So, but no, we worked pretty well, I think, considering we both got through it. I got through it, and he got through it. So yeah, no. So I do remember the first big fight scene, which I think was around these cars, and that's when Hulk, first punch thrown, he hits my stunt coordinator solid right in the face, doesn't pull the punch, and that's when it stopped. And when we had a long talk, and either you get it this way or goodbye. And so because I said, you know, this is not what we do. I mean, it just really pissed me off. He could have really, well, he did. He hurt my stunt coordinator a little bit because he caught him off guard, you know, totally off guard. Okay, we're going to throw a punch. They're doing a rehearsal. First punch he throws, he knocks him for a cold cocks him. That was totally unacceptable. And it still would be, and it still is, you know, to do that kind of shit. But we had a little talk about that. And, hey, you know, this is a movie, Hulk. And I know because he'd been in parts, and he knew, but he got a little carried away and didn't work. It didn't work when you start hurting people. So finally got that straightened out. I've talked to worse, bigger, meaner, tougher, more knowledgeable than he, so it doesn't worry me. I still do. So it doesn't worry. You know, it's part of my job, you know. This is what you do. But I mean, I couldn't have him beating people up, you know. He was hurting people, so you don't do that. So we just stopped. We had a long talk about it right then and there. It doesn't happen again, or we'll go home, you know. So, I mean, so it was fine after that. But after we did that, we had many fight scenes to do. It got more like we do it, you know. is how we do it in the movies, and this is how it's going to be done. Or we don't do it, goodbye, you know. The only thing I was upset about, well, not usually upset, because I'm going, well, what are you doing, stupid? I mean, this is a comic book. Is sometimes when you want to dress Hulk in, you know, wasn't my great idea, let's say, but we worked it around. I got him kind of in a suit once in a while. I think didn't we have him in a white suit? I think once, and yeah, like a connoisseur, right? And but otherwise, it was no. I'm going to be the superhero thing, and that's what, you know, the bandana and the stretch tights and all that, and the boots. Oh, the boots were the big deal. And I don't know how many hundreds of pairs of boots they ended up making for him, but it was all about the boots and stuff. But, you know, that's what they used, and that's what he used to fight in, and so they had to be a certain way, the boots particularly. Yeah, sure is. No, I went through all that, and they go, no, this is the way we want him. And that was I would think, I'm trying to think back, I think my biggest thing in the beginning about it was the wardrobe with Vince. And Hulk, I don't know where, I don't remember him in any of those conversations. It was mainly what my idea for what I wanted him to look like, and then the wrestling commission's idea what they wanted him to look like, you know, and who he was. And at that time, he was really popular. So they were going, oh, whatever he wears, it'll be great. The audience will love him. And they were great. We would go outside the stage or set sometime or location, wherever we were, and there would be huge crowds out there waiting to see him. And so he would talk to the crowds and the kids, and it was incredible. All these people would show up. They'd hear, you know, we were there, and oh my God. So, but yeah, that the wardrobe. You go, why is he dressed like this? Well, finally got to the point when, okay, and because the wardrobe lady was my pick, and she was terrific, but it got to the point where, okay, this is what it's going to be, and that's what it's going to be, you know, and this is the way they want him to look, so he'll look like this. And I noticed if I ever see a picture of him, even now, you know, he's still got the bandana on his head, of course, but that's because of his hair, you know, he has no hair. But, you know, that's kind of become his thing, you know, for real. So at least the head thing. You know, we worked pretty long hours and stuff, so he had a routine, and a big deal for him was his food and how he dealt with his food to keep his energy and, you know, weight up and all this, because we worked long hours. And I remember that was what I found was really interesting, because I would be involved in some of these when we'd go in to have dinner or meetings, and we would have the food brought in, you know. And, you know, he's going to have 8 T-bone steaks, and I'm not kidding. And so between Vince and Hulk and the food was unbelievable. And they had to cook, you know, for all of this, who they knew, and she would do the whole, and it was incredible. The amount of food was incredible, what these guys ate. And Vince, you know, sort of was in that same routine. And so the food thing and all this was a big deal for him. But yeah, that reminds me, that was really, that hit me like, holy moly. And they eat this, you know, 3 times a day or more. But you know, usually we would have a meal at, you know, a few times during the week together. And then when Vince was in town, of course, we'd have get together and meals and everything. It was just incredible. The stack of steaks, and they ate this stuff, and it was really interesting. But, you know, when you look at them too, they're huge guys, as you know, and I guess it does just take a lot of energy, and of course it's very physical all day long. Shooting is very physical all day long for everybody, and we're going to eat while we're there. We're always, whenever we had a meeting, if Vince was in or whatever, and we got together, it was always food, and a lot of it. But it was kind of fun watching him. So he was okay. He would come in. He wouldn't be there too long. And they would come in, to see Hulk, and they would talk over stuff, whatever they were doing. He'd say hi, and we'd talk a few beats, and then he's gone off to go somewhere else. He was very busy too, but they didn't hang around the set too much. So it was mainly us, We had a good producer, we had good unit production manager, and so things went really well. And I knew what I was doing and got what I was getting what I wanted. And because it was my cameraman, my production designer, my stunt coordinator, my effects guy. So, we knew what we were doing. So, and the shoot went very well. When as far as I knew, when I rented for Vince and his wife, I rented New York for them once we were done with the cut. And the report on it was very, very good. They told me that they really loved it, and it really affected them in the point, like you said, there were the high points and the low points, and we really pulled out some of the, like when the brothers in the hospital, all of that. They loved all that stuff. Once we got the show cut, whoever was going to release it, I don't know, said, oh no, they wanted more action. So what they ended up doing was using the fight scenes more than they did some of the comedy stuff. But some of the stuff just had us on the floor. It was so hilarious, if you can believe it. But they wanted the action, more action. So we just used more of the fight stuff, and we had plenty of that. That was the distributors, from what I understand. I don't know. I never talked to them. I never met them. This is just what, Vince and the editors told me. After we had looked at the cut, had the cut, then they were starting to shop it around, to get a release. And so that's where it went from there. But, I don't think it really suffered, really. You know what I mean? I don't think it really suffered. As time went on, I guess, and they're talking to people about, okay, we want to get this out in the theater and make our money back, some things started changing.
The premiere of the film was described in Sex, Lies, and Headlocks. The canary yellow suit was something to behold. Vince liked to tell people that you have to wear your promotion on your back. And tonight, on a balmy May evening in 1989, he was doing just that, at the premiere of the first movie he'd produced. Walking up to the screen of the State Theater, a second-rung movie house in Springdale, Connecticut, he thanked everyone for coming and told them that what they were about to watch was the realization of a dream for him, as well as a new beginning for the WWF. Everyone in the audience knew they'd been invited to be cheerleaders for a boss who just sank $20 million into an action vehicle, no holds barred, for the company's biggest star, Hulk Hogan. And 2 hours later, when the lights came up, they gave the boss a standing ovation. No Holds Barred was funded by McMahon himself for $20 million. He hired a screenwriter who had done 2 flicks for Clint Eastwood. Unfortunately, the movie did 5.2 in its first weekend, and then it died. Vince was upset that Hogan insisted on a $1 million fee even after the movie tanked. And so Vince stepped away from Hollywood, only to return years later with WWE Films in the 2000s. Since then, WWE Films has made over 50 movies, including many direct-to-video. Over last year, Fighting with My Family scored a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. But Tom Wright has the great honor of being there for the initial entry.
It was a wrestling deal, you know. Like I said, the movie, they weren't in the movie business. They were just learning. And, well, I love what I do, and I'm really lucky. I get to do it all the time. And, you know, it's just, it's a great way to, to live. Well, some of the crazy stuff would happen in the fights and so forth when they were doing fight sequences on, you know, what stuff would happen in the ring, or somebody would get their nose broken. I'm sure you know about that one. And just a missed punch. And that, I mean, it wasn't funny, but to this day, because, I mean, he really got one square in the nose. It's in the movie when he gets hit. It stayed in the movie. You can hear it break. It's on the soundtrack. It used to be. I mean, you could hear it break all over the stage or the set. I think we were in a hotel or something. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But it was one of those myths. You know, we didn't have many of them, but that was one that missed, and man, that was, and then it became a big deal. I mean, all of a sudden, oh, he's going home, and he's not going to do this anymore. This is Tiny, you know, and who was also lucky to get the part. But he basically did well in the part, but that sort of changed things a little bit. All of a sudden, people, oh my God, because it was, you know, we couldn't really have him leave the movie. And of course, he was threatening to do that unless he got what he wanted. And so it was kind of funny. We had to fly his girlfriend down and, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, but he's a big boy. And it was not funny, but it was funny, you know, but just because of the way it happened. And for sure, if you ever watch this movie, you'll hear it on the soundtrack when he gets hit in the nose, because it cracked and you could hear it all over the place. But that's a big arm hitting you straight on in the face, you know. Boy, that guy had big arms, big fists. I mean, he's big guys. No, I didn't know any of that. But I'm sure they probably promoted whatever they could to get out of those guys, because that's what it was all about. Promote them and go into these wrestling events, you know, around the country. And I think, what was it, WrestleMania at that time? I think it was called. And oh my God, because we went to Atlantic City, Vince had us in, when they were having one of those big events for the WrestleMania. And it was, we were at the casino, one of the casinos there, where they were doing it. Was that where it was? Yeah. And, I mean, jam-packed. Yeah, that's right, because that's where I met Andre the Giant there. He was there. That was, for me, that was kind of interesting. And he was an interesting guy. To get on the elevator with him. There was two people, him and me. Nobody else could get on the elevator. This guy was huge, and but he was a really nice, I mean, to me anyway, it was really nice conversation. But yeah, those events, and we were there, and it was huge. Humongous, the amount of people there. That, like I say, this was when they were really peaking out, you know, right in the beginning. when the WrestleMania thing hit big. So they were trying to get the movie going, get it done, capitalize on all this stuff. So it doesn't surprise me you're telling me about to get tiny. I'm just surprised he would do it because, you know, he would get hurt pretty easily. You know, so, oh, no, don't hit me too hard, you know, and all this kind of stuff. You know, no, it's just typical, you know.
I thought the movie, as I said, was coming out a little, you know, a little Saturday morning special kiddie show like, and I think I felt it needed something at the end that at least had you walk away feeling that there was a bit more emotion to the story than maybe was really in the film. And I think I tried to find something in there, take the story of Hulk and his younger brother and that whole deal, and the love there and the loyalty, and then make that the hook of, like, I love you, no holds barred, rather than go after, you know, I'm going to beat your head in, no holds barred. But that tends to be my way. I would rather have something real and human and emotional, because I think those are the only things that matter. The people fighting, you know, it's just there's not a lot to musically say about that. I think he was happy with it. I mean, you know, again with Vince, if it's playing currently at the end of the movie, that means he was fairly happy with it. Because if that wasn't true, there would be something different playing at the end of the movie. I think it was as simple as I heard Vince was going to do a movie, and I said, "Can I do the music?" And he said, "Yeah." It was sort of uneventful like that, but that was more eventful for me because I'd never scored a movie before, and I really jumped into the very deep end of the pool. And it was an enormous task, much more enormous task than I thought, and what I had prepped prior to going out to LA to combine the music with the movie. I ended up in this marathon rewrite period in like the 5 days before the mix, or really as the mix was happening, of rewriting tons of stuff. And that was the greatest education ever, because I literally was working about 22 hours a day through that period to get the music done. And part of it too was Vince and the company had no idea to make a movie either. I mean, it was talk about the Wild West. We all were jumping in the deep end of the pool. So, you know, like we got to the end and then suddenly we all realized, okay, we don't have a song for the end of the film. You know, and the classic title crawl, credit roll. And so that's I wrote No Holds Barred, and we had to find people to record, which was great actually, because we was Sandy the Crescent, a very famous music contractor in Hollywood, and she put together this incredible studio band to get that session done. I remember I walked in, and here's Leland Sklar, who's a very famous bass guitarist, and whose work I admired for so many years, and Jeff Skunk Baxter, who'd been part of the Doobie Brothers and Steely Dan, and playing guitar. And so it was, holy crow, this is too cool to imagine. So we just waded through it all, and the film turned out okay. It's kind of a little too comic booky for me, for my taste. But at the time, for Hulkamania and everything, I think it was a good vehicle that got him out there.